Hello, all you hardcores out there. Today I'm joined by Julian. You know who he is, don't you? Julian McGowan, main man from West Yorkshire trainer. How are you doing, Julian?
I'm okay, mate. Yourself?
Where are you today? I'm all right. Where are you today, Julian?
I'm in Florida right now, mate. Orlando, Florida, a place called Claremont. So on 2 week holiday with my partner, her daughters, and myself and my boys.
You're too
Absolutely,
Hey?
Absolutely baking, mate.
Not like, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy weather. It's a bit cloudy today,
Yeah.
and then the sun will come out, and then on an evening you get the thunderstorms and rain like you've never seen it. But the day is kind of gone then, so you're not too bothered about it. It's so mixed, it's insane.
Yeah, I've jotted a few things down, and before we start on it, let me just start with this one because I've had a text off some New Weeks in media that apparently Tommy Fury has told his old man he's retiring, not fighting again. Are they just working an angle to get the sense out there, bit of PR, or do you think he won't fight again?
Well, I said to you, I remember Tommy Fury 2 or 3 years ago when he went in. I don't watch his stuff, but he went into a reality TV program. Now, generally, famous people do this after the careers are finished. You're a dedicated fighter, and then you go into all this crazy stuff after your career's done. That's absolutely fine. But when you're doing it before your career even starts, what's more important to you, being a boxer or being famous? And the biggest signal for me that Tommy Fury was never serious about fighting, maybe he felt he had to do it because he was a Fury, was the fact he had 10 amateur fights. Now, I had more than 10 amateur fights, and I wasn't a serious amateur. I did it kind of recreationally. I was never going to make a career out of it, something I did because I enjoyed it. 10 amateur fights for a Fury. If he was serious, he'd have gone into the elites, the open class. He'd have had 50, 60 amateur fights for a couple of clubs, but he didn't. So that was indication number one. Indication number two was the fact that he went into Love Island. And indication number three was the fact that he was calling out YouTube guys, will he or won't he fight Jake Paul. Three strong indications that he's got zero interest in having a real solid professional boxing career. Zero interest.
Do I think you'll quid?
Yeah. Do I think he'll fight again? Probably. Do I think he'll ever win titles and have a serious career? Absolutely not.
Right. Well, let's put him to bed then. Right, that's him dealt with. So my friend has just sent me that. He might fight again, he might not. But who cares anyway? He's a gimmick. Right, Mark. Pardon?
Who cares? Central area level, who cares?
Yeah, that's right. If that. Right, Mark Heffron, he's done well, hasn't he? The word is he might be fighting Gabe Rosado next. That's a good fight for him because he's a good gatekeeper, him, isn't he? Just had a good win.
Yeah, Rosado's he's not elite, but he's kind of that fringe top 10, as you've said. He'll give anybody an argument. He's definitely durable. I think it was Mungao, Jamie Mungao, who boxed him, as that's how you pronounce it. That was a good fight. He throws a lot of punches. He's fit. He'll do 12 rounds. I think that's a really good fight. I just think, why not? You know, why not take a fight like that? He's been a really good servant as Heffron. You wouldn't make him a strong favourite in that fight. You would make him a 55% favourite. And he's a good domestic operator, probably in old money, fringe European level. But listen, there's lesser fighters than him earning good money and bigger opportunities than he.
Fighters than Mark Heffron won world titles. And don't forget, Mark Heffron looks the part, doesn't he? He can crack as well, can't he?
Yeah, he's a good specimen. He can crack. And he's already tested himself at domestic level. He's paid his dues. Give him a good payday. Give him the spotlight, and let's see how far he can go. But he's in good hands, and he's with a good team. And I'd like to see him do well.
Yeah, I would. I like him. I want Dennis to sign him up. We had a rate ding dong over it. And Asif Bally. Yeah, I hope you're all right, Asif. But you know what you said. No good. No good. He just 30 grand for tickets and he can whack like him and he looks the part. It's not rocket science. Stop making boxing so complicated, all you people.
But this is what I said, Russell. This is what I've said about talent spotting. There are very few people who can talent spot in boxing, like Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's not a talent spotter. He gets gifted on a plate all the elite amateurs, all the big name fighters. So bringing these fighters through to championships is not a skill. Talent spotting is being a kid.
It's true. You know why it's true? How many world champions has Eddie Hearn had from debut and his dad that were not from Team GB? How many can you think of?
Probably count.
To world champion.
I bet you can count them on your thumbs.
I can count them on one thumb.
There you go.
There you go. They're behind.
Whereas you look at Steve Wood and look at some of the fighters Steve Wood's had, who just as a local man.
Years.
Yep. Steve Wood, Terry Flanagan, Josh Warrington, other British champions, Jamie Moore, guys like that fought for world titles. That's a
WBC #1. He never got his title chance, did he?
Exactly, but that's somebody who can grow talent, work with talent, and bring them through on the small shows onto the big stage. That's what you call a manager and a promoter. There's no skill throwing money around, and then you lose a few, you win a few. Zero skill in doing
that. A lot of people seem to be leaving Eddie Hearn, don't they? Beefy's left him. They reckon they were going to sign Jack Cattrall. He's gone to Sky. Chisora's considering offers from Tyson Fury to fight in a trilogy. I know, yeah. Who wants to see Tyson against Delboy? I mean, come on, it'd just be just to get money, wouldn't it? That, wouldn't it? It's an easy win for Tyson, isn't it?
He wouldn't make a sparring partner really for Fury right now, would he?
No. Daniel Dubois suing Don King for $1.4 million. It says on websites. You've obviously seen what's happened, haven't you?
Yes.
What's your take on it all? Because don't forget, Warren lost 7.2 million, didn't he, in 25 years ago, or was some in 90s, wasn't it, or whatever. We King, they had a trial, didn't they, in 2000. King dragged it on for a year, didn't he?
He lost massive, did Frank, didn't he? Hopefully the sound's coming through, Russell. We got loud crickets and all sorts. So first of all, I think we have to say Frank Warren's a promoter. He didn't promote the event, so whilst he might, you could feel why he probably should have acted on an advisory capacity, saying to Dubois, be very, very careful what contracts you get through from Don King. Ultimately, it's down to Daniel Dubois' management team to check out dot the I's and cross the T's on the contract. Clearly, they've not done that. As I said on a comment on your show recently, you dance with the devil, this is what happens. I feel for Dubois, but ultimately, you're dealing with Don King. Shock, horror. What I find incredible about Don King is he's been questioning the scruples of Frank Warren. Don King's a man who stamped on someone's head and killed him. He's killed 2 people previously. He's done time. He's an out-and-out villain. He's a very rich, very clever villain, but he's an out-and-out villain. So
his worth. Yeah.
So exactly. So he's absolutely minted. You deal with Don King at your peril. And I think ultimately, whilst I have sympathy to some extent for Dubois, I don't have a great deal of sympathy, because ultimately they've seen an easy way back up. Instead of going the hard road, having the tough 10-rounders, learning his craft, saying, look, I got beat by Joyce, I had a bad defeat, I'm going to grow now. They've looked at the easy way to get out, to force their position. This is where boxing is right now, and this is exactly what they've done. They've tried to buy a belt for free, and ultimately against a garbage champion. I mean, that guy, it was whatever it was called, absolutely horrendous. He looked like a Michelin man, and they've thought, we've got a cheap belt here. Well, it's cost them, hasn't it, mate?
Yeah.
He had, I always remember I think it was Riddick Bowe said it about Tim Witherspoon. He goes, it'd be absurd for the American public to see me fight someone for the heavyweight championship with bigger breasts than Dolly Parton. Well, we had that with the guy that Daniel Dubois boxed, didn't we? You got a guy who turns up and he's not even been training. They thought they've got an easy belt, and now they've not been paid. And I don't need to look at inactivity now, but they're certainly going to be out of pocket. So you only had to watch that broadcast. It was like something from It's a Knockout in the 70s. Remember that? It was it was a car crash television to watch it. I kept expecting Huey Green to be commentating. It was comedy. The fight was comedy. and now it looks like you're not going to get paid, or you might get paid in about 5 years' time. By the time Don King's probably 6 feet under. So good luck with that. Learn from it and do what you're supposed to do. Earn your shot at the biggest prize in sport instead of trying to buy these belts from Toys R Us.
Whatever happened to working your way up rankings for your title shot? Said
Well,
you promoted to get you a free trinket belt.
it's just gone, hasn't it? You know, anybody who thinks I'm knocking belts, I mean, I have certain views on belts. I've relaxed those views over the years, but that's exactly what they've done. So you got well beat by Joe Joyce. It was a good fight, but you got well beat. You got a lot of criticism, right? And what you should have done is you should have gone right back to the basics. What did I lack in the Joe Joyce fight? I lacked defense. I lacked stamina. I lacked gears. I lacked experience in the mid rounds. I lacked all those things. So the team should have looked at, instead of Shane McGuigan, who's a really good coach, instead of Shane McGuigan and the team McGuigan trying to go straight for the money, which they always do, they call them money for not, for a reason. Instead of going straight for the money, straight for the big baubles, straight to force that position for the massive fights, they should have taken him. This is a kid who's 23-year-old. Go right back to the beginning. Learn the basics. Learn the things that you haven't learned. And then once you get to that level, you'll stay there. But they didn't want to do that, did they? It's all about get as much money as we can, as fast as we can, claim we've got some kind of phony world title, and then claim we're a legitimate challenger when the guy still hasn't got a hard 10-rounder under his belt. It's absurd.
Honourable Daniel Dubois. I like him, and I've got a lot of time for his manager, Martin Bowers. I've met him and spent a bit of time with me. He's a nice guy. But I think, first of all, when you're dealing with Don King, Frank Warren should have said, look, I've been in court with Don King. I lost over £7 million in the case. You've got to be very careful. He's like, well, what did I say in that video? He's like a crocodile, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
He'll rock up and he'll take a meal. You know, the old dog crocodile who can't get about as much. Every now and then he'll cause some problems for a few people. He reminds me of that. But I think maybe Frank Warren thought, well, get him out there and we might have a bit of messing about with money, but we'll get the belt and get on the map kind of thing. Do you think that's what's gone on?
Possibly, but I can't help thinking what they did to Tim Witherspoon when he fought Bruno. I remember Tim Witherspoon got 1.3.
He got over to lose, didn't he? He got 900 grand he should have got, shouldn't he?
And he ended up with 100 grand or something. And
with 90 grand, didn't he, or something like that.
We'd got Carl King, who was his manager, Don King's son, and Don King, the promoter. And he ended up with absolute peanuts. And Bruno got so much more money than Witherspoon. And I spoke to Witherspoon about that on Instagram on a live. And it wasn't that bitter, actually, but it's just like, he kind of says, well, he laughed about it, did Witherspoon. He goes, well, that's Don King. That's just, everybody knows what Don King's like. And are these people genuinely surprised that he's not being paid?
Don King's been doing that for 51 years. Well, he's been doing it all his life, and he's screwing people.
Yeah. What Don King gives you, he gives you the platform, he gives you the exposure, and he gives you the opportunity for the belt. But in terms of breaking down the pay, not a chance.
His contracts, let me tell you this. You know, when Clinton Woods for Tarver's Cloud, I got to see that contract. Unbelievable, mate. Unbelievable. Dennis going through it. We a tooth comb, thinking, I better go through this and make sure that we're not getting. You know what I mean?
Read the small print, innit? Read the caveat. I always think
magnifying glass, because it all was really small on Don King's contract. You know, near the bottom where he signed. You can imagine going through it all for ages and thinking, oh, this is brilliant. Yeah, mate. Well, that's and then 95% of people make it when you go to the bottom. Yeah. On it, and he had them all on camera filming it in his office. He's not daft. He's an old stager, isn't he?
Of course he is. I mean, he was the one, wasn't he? I mean, it was, everybody knows the story, but he promised Ali 5 million and Foreman 5 million for the Rumble in the Jungle. He didn't have a penny in his pocket.
Yeah, but he got it off them. Then he went to them for money, didn't he?
Absolutely. So he used, OTM, other people's money.
Ali out of $1 million on Holmes fight, and Ali settled for 50 grand, didn't he?
Larry Holmes said he was an absolute scumbag. I remember him using those words about Don King. He says, Don got me the opportunity, but Holmes was defending his title in the early days for like less than $1 million against the Zanons and the the Leroy Jones of this
That's where
world.
King made all his money, you know, from the Holmes defences. They really rinsed it.
Absolutely.
That's when he got started buying private jets and stuff like that and big boats and all that. He lives near Trump, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Where you are, there's somewhere around there, isn't he?
Probably is, mate. If I bump into him, I'll probably rephrase what I've
Still
just said.
£5 for a can of Coke round there.
We did. We got. I sent you that message. We got five drinks yesterday at one of the Disney parks. It was $30. What's that? About 25 quid. But the parks are gorgeous. But yeah, five quid for a bottle of Coke, mate.
No.
Might be
A terrible joke, in fact, it is. Right. Nigel Benn's son, Conor Benn. Chris Eubank's son, Chris Jr. It's dead in water apparently now over the rehydration clause. It's dangerous and all that and blah blah blah. So that's where they're at. But they've already planted seed in fans' heads now, haven't they? So they've got something to talk about for 3 years, haven't we?
I've said the same thing to you, Russell, about Conor Benn.
Didn't you?
Name association says he won't fight Eubank right at the beginning. So if that fight happens, I'll be amazed. But this goes back to what I said about the Tommy Fury about name association and looking for big cash grabs before you focus on the target of the real world, being the real world champion. I don't remember Thomas Hearns when he was like wrecking everybody in Detroit, taking like crazy fights at middleweight or light heavyweight or shouting people out. I don't remember that. I remember him focusing on being the best welterweight in the world. And this is the problem that we've got. And now Conor Benn, what he should be doing, he should be tuning into the zone tonight and watching Mckinson and Ortiz. And he should be ashamed of himself. He should be watching two guys with unbeaten records who want to fight each other. They want to fight for the right for Spence or Crawford. He should be embarrassed watching that fight on the same network that he fights on for the same promoter. He should be embarrassed because he's calling out guys. He wants to drag them down in weight so they're half dead in the ring, or because it's a massive payday, instead of doing what he was supposed to be doing, which is fighting his way to the undisputed or for one of the championships. That's what he should be doing, and he's not. He's just trying to get as much cash as he can, and that tells me he's not a real legitimate professional fighter. He will say, yes, I am. I train every day. I train 3 times a day. You talk shite. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you in life? All this kind of stuff. I've got my heated seats and the Rolex and all this kind of stuff. You should be embarrassed watching tonight's fight. In fact, you should watch it because you've no right to watch it because you're not a legitimate contender like those guys.
Oh, it's Sheffield, isn't it, tonight, that? DAZN.
Oh, I don't know what show it is, but it's the Mckinson or Virgil Ortiz fight, isn't it?
Well, that's not on DAZN, surely, is it?
Oh, it's not. I thought it was on DAZN.
It's not on at Sheffield tonight, though, because Dalton Smith headlines, doesn't he?
Oh, I know there's the earlier show. I didn't know if it was the middle of the night show.
In America?
Yeah, in the States. Yeah, so
not tonight, yeah.
I'm lucky ones who'll get to watch that fight tonight then. So I'll be watching that fight on DAZN if I can get. I have DAZN, but I have DAZN UK. I'll see if I can watch it tonight. But yeah, that's a fight tonight. But this is 2 unbeat. McKinson's got some balls, hasn't he? He's got some serious balls, or maybe he's got a lack of opportunities as well. I don't know. But this is what Conor Benn should be doing instead of dragging people off the sofa. And he's a massively improved fighter, Conor Benn. I'm not ripping his learning or his development, but this is what people do. And going back to it, I can't help it. This is what Colin Jones did. This is what Tony Simpson did. They fought tough eliminators to fight world champions. This is what they did in the day. Instead of grabbing people like Chris Algieri off the commentary sofa, who had one fight in 2 years, and fighting guys who are absolutely shot to bits. You got to fight live contenders. And Mckinson and Ortiz, what a brilliant fight that is. I mean, McKinson's going to drive him absolutely nuts with his style. He's got zero chance of knocking Ortiz out. And it's just a case of, can he cope with that continuous heat and that power of Ortiz? And you know what? Win or lose, for me, he'll get true respect from boxing fans. because he's rolled the dice and he's not just talking about the big fights. He's actually going in with a guy.
You think that Conor Benn's just basically doing a lot of talking, a lot of mouthing off, and not doing a lot of fighting?
Yeah, I think it also gives Eddie Hearn some kind of cop out, doesn't it? Because he promised a big fight for Conor Benn in his next appearance, and if he can't deliver the fight, he'll say, "Well, we tried to get a big fight. We tried to get, Eubank, and it couldn't happen for whatever reason." And they're just giving themselves excuses all the time. He promised us a big name. Now, what we're going to get now is you're going to get this fight's going to fall through. I think so anyway. And you've just said it sounds like it's falling through. The fight's going to fall through. The Gad gets it wrong again. And what we're going to do, you've got less than 8 weeks before Conor Benn fights. So even if they get Conor Benn a big name, Conor Benn's already in shape. He's in the gym. He's in shape. He won't be that far off peaking, 3-4 weeks off peaking. And they're going to get a big name out, roll a big name out, but it's going to be somebody we've heard of, somebody who really is at the tail end of their career. And they're going to get 6-7 weeks notice. And there's a theme to Conor Benn's career, isn't there? He always, left-hand side of the bill always gets the notice, right-hand side of the bill doesn't. I'll be amazed if he fights Chris Eubank Jr.
Well, the fights should tick over, isn't it?
You got to keep it in, mate, because that phone might ring.
Yeah.
I don't think
Go on, sorry.
we won't get Broner because he's probably about 13 stone right now. I don't know.
No, forget him. He's a fat as the pig Michelin man. Who wins, Benn or Eubank, if they fight?
Oh, if Chris Eubank does the weight safely and there's a good rehydration clause in there that he can put on 12 to 14 pounds, Chris Eubank will absolutely take him apart. There's no doubt about that. The only chance Conor Benn's got is obviously his power. Now, first of all, that power is not going to go all the way up to middleweight, as it very rarely does power travel. We saw it happen with Thomas Hearns, but still not to that devastating.
It happened with his dad. It never travelled to super middle, did it?
It just doesn't, mate. And people will say that Thomas Hearns, who I just mentioned, his power will travel up. Thomas Hearns wasn't knocking middleweights out like he was knocking welterweights out. It wasn't knocking Michael Arjade out and James Kinchin out and Ernie Singletary when he moved up there.
To Kip, though, didn't he?
He put around the blown up lightweight, but ultimately, he did score knockouts later in his career, but the power doesn't travel as much. It just doesn't. Look at even Ricky Hatton when he moved up from light welterweight to welterweight, how he just doesn't happen, mate. That power doesn't travel. So Conor Benn against the guy, whatever you say about Chris Eubank Jr., is durable. He can take a shot. He's got a great chin on him. So he's got zero chance of knocking Eubank Jr. out. So what does he do? Outbox him?
No. Well, I don't see Conor Benn outboxing him, do you?
Yeah, I think Eubank Jr. would stop him anywhere between 6 and 8. I think he'd just way too sharp for him, too big for him.
The other kid would have a go though, young Ben. He looks game enough, doesn't he?
Ben's definitely game. He's got his fat balls, definitely. But if you look at things such as that, you've also got to think about, he hasn't got big fight experience. We were talking about Daniel Dubois earlier, and similar to Anthony Joshua, he hasn't got big fight experience. So when Conor Benn gets dragged into round 5 and 6 and he's tiring, what does he draw from? Does he draw from experience? Does he draw from that career that he's been there before? No. There's always a first time to get to that point. But when you get to a tough fight, you need to do it in stages. You can't go from that level to that level.
Like Charles Adamo, Carl Frotz, when Carl Frotz, that was his first 12 rounder that he did. And he dropped him in 8, but after the fight, he was laid on his settee for a week. He couldn't move.
Absolutely, and that's it.
He said, I couldn't move. I can't move. And it was his first 12 rounder, but in his head, he knew he could do it then, and he felt really positive and all that after that.
And that's what it's all about, Russell. This is the development of fighters from 6, 8, 10.
You can draw on that, Cobra, thinking, well, I shouldn't feel like this. I did it before. 12, I do it. You draw on it, don't you? But when you haven't done it, you don't. If you're saving out in tank or,
You just don't know, mate. So we did it with Simon. We went from 4 rounders to hard 6 rounders with the likes of Harry Ramagardi, who had just beaten Derry Matthews. And then we took up to 8 rounds. We did a couple of 8 rounders against Journeyman before he fought Crawler. You get the rounds in. And then when he fought Crawler in the eliminator, he'd done a hard 10 round. So when he fought for the 12 rounder against Andy Morris, he knew he'd been there before and he could probably do that distance. But what's Conor Benn jumping from? Forget the kind of early fight where he got dropped. He's jumping from blowing people away in 2 rounds. Faded guys who
We didn't win a guy who was a 12-round specialist.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Bigger.
people, I hear people saying, you know, I've heard the Guard and all of these other people and Sam Jones talking about how he's got a real good chance in this fight. The only chance
You've got to say that because they're in the click, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in the click, but I prefer your Colin Hart, even though he's a bit more, you know, he's a bit more kind of less direct than he used to be. Colin Hart was very, very direct and was always honest. And I think you've got to have integrity. That's my opinion. And I think they should just say Conor Benn has got a very small chance of winning this fight. The only chance he's got is that Eubank is absolutely dead at 156. That's the only chance he's got. If Eubank is strong, he's got zero chance of winning that fight. And I'll debate that with anybody.
Well, I think Conor Benn's got 2 chances of winning. Slim and none, and Slim's in jail.
Absolutely, mate. He's not proved his world level, has he? Let's be honest.
No. Okay. Do you want to click over onto part 2?
Of course.